Pawlenty, Financial Services Roundtable President. Governor, at their core, they're arguing about, Wall Street's tight relationship with both parties, but in these kids' case, with the Democratic Party, and they're not happy. It's something that President-elect Trump has talked about addressing, the Dodd-Frank financial reform measures. How much progress do you think Mr. Trump will make there?
Well, a couple of things, Neil. There's a lot of things that happen in this election, but it's clear when you look at a geographic map by the dispersion of the vote and who voted for who, that modern-day Reagan Democrats have become Trump Republicans. And there's a lot of folks who are feeling economically displaced in this economy and want Washington to do something to make their lives better. So one of Trump's proposals is to fix Dodd-Frank, which is the legislation that was enacted post-crisis to crack down on the industry. But we got to make sure that that bill, as they crack down on the industry, also doesn't suffocate the economy. So there's going to be a lot of debate, but he hasn't really filled out the spaces or the details as to what he means by, repealing or replacing Dodd-Frank.
Well, he said that the thing failed, that it didn't do what it's supposed to do, and ended up pile regulation on top of regulation to the extent, paraphrasing here, Governor, that banks stopped lending.
Well, yeah. I mean, on the one hand, that's exactly right. So he says, and I think correctly, that if you pile on too much regulation, you stop capital formation and deployment or lending to families and small businesses and extending of credit that you need to keep the economy moving. So making that reasonable would help a lot. But you also want to make sure you still protect consumers in the process.
Governor, I've noticed that since his election, no group of stocks have soared as much as financial stocks. And I don't know whether it's the uptick in interest rates, the uptick in the market in general, the feeling that the economy will improve, tax cuts will be good, or that Donald Trump, will ease off on them. What do you think it is?
I think it's all of the above. I think Dodd-Frank, people are going to say, look, the Republicans are going easy on the financial service industry or Wall Street, or that'll be the criticism.
Right.
Trump is going to say, hey, look, I'm trying to get the economy going, and Dodd-Frank stifles economic growth and investment. He's also going to say, by the way, Dodd-Frank picks government winners and losers with special designations and the like, and so he wants to get rid of some of that, as does the conservative Republicans. So that's sort of the sights and sounds or coming attractions of this debate as it unfolds, and the Democrats are going to say, here we go again. They're letting loose the reins on Wall Street. But people have to look at the details of this to make sure it's not just rhetoric.
Your name, Governor, as I'm sure you're aware, has come up for a variety of cabinet posts, including Treasury Secretary, where you would have a hand in some of these debates. Have you expressed any interest? Has anyone called you?
I'm not being considered for those positions. I know there was one article that suggested that, Neil, but that was just speculative, and there's no basis.
How do you know?
No basis. Well, I have a pretty good sense for it, I think, and I'm not being considered. So it's a mood issue. But thank you for asking. I appreciate that.
All right. Well, I bet I'm right, because my sources are impeccable. And when they're sober, they're really impeccable. But I'm kidding. But do you think that it's important with this cabinet that whoever is ultimately chosen reach over to Democrats? I mean, the Republicans are feeling very confident. Look, we've got the House and the Senate. We've got essentially what Barack Obama had when he came into office, a full run of the table. So we don't need to do much outreach to Democrats. What do you say?
Well, they do have full control of the government. So with the exception of the filibuster, they have a chance to go bold, go big, and do a lot, transform all the policies that they've talked about during the campaign and that conservatives and Republicans have talked about for a long time. So they don't necessarily need, at least in phase one, the Democrats. But keep in mind two things. One is, in certain issues, you still got to have 60 votes in the Senate, so the Democrats are going to have some influence there. A lot of them are up for re-election in Trump states in a few years, so they're going to be more accommodating perhaps than they were the last few years. And then secondly, you want to make sure you don't so far overreach that it boomerangs on you. So I do think it's a time to be bold, though, and the Republicans can do most of what they need to get done, frankly, by themselves.
Governor, always a pleasure. Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.